Hey, what's up, everybody? Not a whole lot if you're watching this U.S. men's national team game. They're currently losing 2-1 to Canada. So call it what you want. It's feeling very average to good right now. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Tony Miola and Brian McBride, and we are going to recap what we've watched, which hasn't been all that much fun from a U.S. perspective. If you support Canada, though, this has been a hell of a game. And I do want to give a shout out to Jesse Marsch. He was on the last show, a preview of this game. And I said, hey, man, give us a prediction. And he said, well, of course, Canada's going to win. And I pressed him for a score, and he said 2-1 Canada, and it's currently 2-1 Canada. So prediction god status almost confirmed for one, Jesse Marsch, our former co-host.
Yeah, but Jimmy,
go ahead.
Jimmy, I have to jump in there. I was listening to that, and I'm like, wait a second. If you're that, you strongly believe in your team, you're going to say 2-0. You're not going to say 2-1, right?
I think because he's a U.S. soccer fan deep down.
No,
right?
He's not singing the national anthem. No. You can't go there.
Don't get Tony triggered again.
Bri, you had to start. You had to go there right away, Bri.
With Charlie not here, he's got to trigger Tony as fast as we possibly can. Wow.
So, Jimmy, 2-2 is out of the question. My prediction's already with a couple minutes left. It's already out of the question.
No. We've had a couple looks. Right. 2-2 still in.
Felt like you were giving it to Jesse already, but I don't know. Maybe
I said
was
almost
wrong.
Confirmed. I threw the almost in there. But McBrizzle, welcome. We missed you last show. What are your thoughts after the 94.5 minutes that we've watched so far?
Yeah, really disappointing first half. I mean, we played right into the strength of Canada, the way Jesse sets up all his teams. You know, he wants to condense the space. The ball gets played in midfield. They collapse on that ball, and they win, and they go. And to Canada's credit, to your point, Jesse had the game plan, and it was executed really well by Canada. There's a few times before the first goal that they probably should have executed it better and finished the play off. And then the last thing is, us trying to break lines from the back when you have this well-drilled team and a team that actually has been playing together in the system that Jimmy wants. I mean, that Jesse wants. You're playing into their hand. And second half has been much better. The substitutes have made a complete difference. I thought Aiden Morris looks so much more comfortable on the ball than Johnny Cardoso. And then it gets into the point where we've put ourselves in a mountain too high to climb. Sorry, Tony. Not saying that we can't get Nick this late one to make it 2-2.
Oh, I don't know if we even deserve the 2-2, all things considered, Big Tones. I mean, look at the balance.
That's where I was going to go. It might go 2-2, but I when I look at this, Canada was a better side, especially as Brian said in that first half. We did everything we could to play somehow into the middle of the field, exactly where Jesse wants to press. We didn't have a midfielder that could turn and face the field because every ball had to be played back. We lost the ball from Ream into Johnny, gives a bad ball away. Before you know it, we're down 1-0. But we could have been down 1-0 in the first couple minutes of that game, right? And look, what you guys we've all been on teams, right? That what's the first thing you think about when you hear that other team's going to pressure, especially early in the game? You think about skipping lines, right? And we're so into this romantic way of playing.
I'm going to cut you off. I'm going to cut you off because I love that thought. We're going to talk about it on the other side. So hit like and subscribe, everybody, on the YouTubes. We're coming back. We're going to simulcast. Hi, hello, and welcome to your favorite Average to Good podcast. Call it what you want. I'm Jimmy Conrad, alongside two legends of the U.S. men's national team, Tony Miola and Brian McBride, and we are going to break down everything that you need to know and hope to know and want to know about the U.S.'s 2-1 loss to Canada in this friendly without our coach that we hope is going to get hired, Mauricio Pochettino. Instead, we had Mikey Varas in charge, the U20 coach. And in fact, Brian McBride, let's talk about Mikey Varas. He took over this team. We struggled in the first half, and you hired him for the U20 job. So I don't know if he's up to snuff for the first team just yet. That's my big takeaway. Putting you right on.
That's your takeaway? Are you serious? Listen, you can set up your team. You can set up your team to play, right? And if you have execution issues, which we did in the first half, we played into pressure in the midfield as We all know Jesse loves to set up his teams to collapse on any balls playing into the middle third of the field, and then they go. And even you add in the fact that we then tried to break lines through it, and the passing angles weren't good. The execution of our passing was sloppy, and it just built pressure. And you could see our players not having idea of what to do and how to beat pressure. So the big thing, and I've said this many times, and I've said this on this podcast, a coach gets evaluated not only by how you do and set up your team, right? Because you don't know how your players are going to execute and play and really finish what you've been doing on the field in practice, what the coach does at the second half. And he made some changes, not immediately out of the second half, but the substitutions definitely had to help. The energy levels got way better. And that was one of the two things that were missing for me in the first half, especially, was our intensity was poor. We didn't play the ball quickly enough. We didn't move the ball quickly enough. We didn't get into tackles. The amount of like little chippy things that were happening that Canada was doing to our players that we didn't do back because the referee wasn't calling them really set the tone for this match, and especially that first half. So to answer your question, I thought Mikey in his first full professional position didn't necessarily set up the team right in the first half, but second half was much, much better.
Okay, fair. I agree that there were some adjustments that were made. And Tones, I want to continue to dive in on this topic about the high pressure. What I find interesting is that it was no surprise, like you said, McBrizzle, about their desire to want to get after us, to play high intensity, to be physical. I get the sense, and Jesse Marsch alluded to it in our previous podcast when he came on, that he thinks our team isn't very tough, right? I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I would say maybe he thinks we're a little soft. And he went out there and said, let's see how tough they are. And they punched us in the face every single time we got the ball. They set traps to do, and we tried to play through it every single time. And so, Tones, you and I were talking about this before we came on camera. Like, if the other team, and is going to be well organized and coordinated in the press, you also have to be well organized and coordinated. And if you're not, then there's no shame in dumping the ball into the corner, turning them around, getting them locked in, and then having them try to play out of pressure. I don't understand the romanticism out of trying to play every single time out of the back and building it out. Like, we're not Manchester City. We're not Pep Guardiola. We're just not that. We can be at times. We can't do it every single time. Anyway, I'm getting triggered. I'm triggering myself right now. Big Tones, your thoughts? What do you got on this?
Well, I read your tweet, and that's exactly what you said, right? There's romanticism with building out of the back, but it's funny because as you were talking, I wanted to bring up Manchester City, and you brought it up because that's probably the best example we have right now. A couple of years ago was Barcelona. This is the way that they wanted to play. But Man City, first 10 minutes of the game, is not afraid to put the ball over the top and stretch the game, because what that does is stretch the middle of the field, and then it opens up a little bit. Now, the one thing we couldn't deal with today, I thought, and another thing you and I were talking about before we came on, Moise Bombito is about as fast as any center back in CONCACAF, and I'm sure he can match up with many guys in the world. Then you got Alphonso Davies, so you're not going to win a lot of the races, but what you can do is push your team up, right? You can push your team up, you can pressure. Maybe they make a mistake, maybe they just kick a ball out of play because you are pressuring them. So what Canada did, they invited us, I thought, in the first 20 minutes of the game to play the ball into the middle of the field. And that's exactly what we did. And we turned the ball over 3 times. One time we paid for it with a goal, but we could have paid 3 times by doing that. And as Brian said, the minute the ball turns over, Jesse's teams, they just want to go at you 100 miles an hour. So why play into that part of it? Second half was better. I think the game opens up a little bit more in the second half, but credit to the substitutes that came in, because I thought some of them did a pretty good job.
All right.
I just want to add one more thing to that.
Go ahead.
It's not just playing the ball over the top against teams that press, because the way Jesse sets up his teams, he doesn't just press all the way into the half. He presses on the actual half. So everybody's on that side. And you can see when a ball is played over distance, diagonally, not necessarily behind, it causes problems. And to Canada's credit, when that happened, they're drilled that they drop and they get their lines back in order and they're not playing in behind. So, but at least it relieves pressure for the men, for our side, because we didn't do it enough in the first half. It was all side to side, way too slow, and the pressure pays off.
Yeah, there were a couple things that I saw. We had Musah, who started in midfield, and then he ended up dropping off to make a third in the back line with our two center backs, and then our outside backs would get forward. And it just wasn't working. There wasn't anything that we were doing that was working. And I do want to say one thing. I remember the top teams for Manchester United under Sir Alex Ferguson. They were very clear that if option, like let's say Gary Neville, who was playing right back for United, got the ball and he couldn't get it out to David Beckham right away, then or if he did and got it right back, there would be a coordinated effort by the number 9, Wayne Rooney, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Eric Cantona, whoever, to start to run into that space. Because if the outside back is stepping to Beckham, there's going to be a space created. So in this instance, Alphonso Davies steps out to try to slow down Brendan Aronson. Then there's a little pocket of space we can play into. And if that timing of that run is right, it doesn't mean you're going to win the ball, to your point, McBrizzle, but it does mean that you can at least move your team up. It's a 50-50 ball. If their defender gets it, where's he going to go? He's either running at his own goal or he's trying to play it out of bounds. And so there's just these little things that we can do. This isn't on Mikey Vars. This is bigger than Mikey Vars as the interim coach. But I was a little bit disappointed that we weren't prepared for what came, and we still tried to have like a pissing contest. Oh, you're going to pressure us? Guess what? We're still good enough to play through you. Well, guess what? We weren't. And we didn't have guys who had the courage or had the quality, let's say, to play out of those tight situations. So, yeah, I'm a little pissed at what I saw, especially in the first half. Now, I agree with you that there were some adjustments made. And
Jimmy,
go ahead.
Jimmy, how about this? When you saw Christian was at it, right? He was causing some problems, and you got all this grappling all the time. If you saw that what happened when you were playing, what would you be doing on the other side?
Yeah, something similar.
Yeah, giving it back, right? And we didn't.
Right.
I mean,
yeah,
you saw Jonathan David just drop into midfield, had some freedom to just create the game. It was there's some things that we still need to understand. I know we're a young team, but we have experience. We have to understand when it's like, listen, this is a time I can send a message. I'm not trying to hurt the player, but he's going to know that if your team's doing this to my guy, I'm going to do it to your guy. And we didn't do that at all the whole time.
Yeah. All right, so Tones, let's talk about Mauricio Pochettino, the big name that's supposed to be announced here, or has supposed to be announced for the last 3 weeks. Hasn't been finalized yet. We're hearing next week, but we've heard that before. If he's watching this game, I assume he's watching this game with his staff. What do you think he takes away from it? Like, oh my God, do I really want this? Do I want this job? Are we sure? We texted each other a group chat. I don't know, Mauricio. I don't know, like his staff. Maybe we shouldn't. We could just stay at home and make money from Chelsea, not doing anything. Why walk into this? You know?
Well, I think he probably gets an idea of some individuals and what they are and what he thinks they could be. I also think if he's watching this right now, and I'm guessing that he is, we're all guessing that he is that he realizes that when teams press us, we're going to have to find another solution, right? Because we just don't have those type of guys until he gets his group together and can work on spacing and how he wants to build out of the back. But I think the overriding factor, if you just look at the first 45 minutes, if I'm sitting watching this as a potential coach, I'm like, God, we're too slow with the ball. Everything is slow. Even when we stepped high up the field to press, there wasn't high pressure. We were just higher up the field, doing it a little bit slower than Canada was doing it. So I would think that the one thing is working on tempo, both with and without the ball, is going to be important. But I don't know if it was you or Brian that said it. I mean, it looked kind of like a friendly for the U.S. and it meant something for Canada, especially the first 45 minutes. So according to the reports we heard on TV, there was a little screaming and yelling going on at halftime, which actually makes me happy that there was a little screaming and yelling going on at halftime. And I think Melissa Ortiz maybe said something that couldn't be repeated on camera. So, look, that's a good sign that they didn't think that they played well in the first half and they made some adjustments. So, as a manager, you're going to look at that too. So, the guys who came in, how they maybe changed the pace of the game, how they maybe found different spaces, all of those little things. But, yeah, look, I think overall, Jimmy, he's going to go. We got a little bit of work to do right now.
Okay, and then McBrizzle, what do you think with regard to Pochettino? I guess, well, let's say, I thought that was a great answer. Let's say it like this really quick. I want to say it like this. One of the silver linings of a game like this is a lot of guys got opportunities. And so you get to see who took their opportunity and who didn't. And that felt like, for me, was on clear display as to who was up for the challenge and who is, especially against an opponent that was trying to get after it, right? And try to demonstrate not only can you play, but also, to your point earlier, do you have some bite? Do you have a little something extra that can help our team in different ways? And I think some guys played their way off the team a little bit, my humble opinion.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on who.
We'll get to player ratings in the next segment.
No,
Don't you worry.
I'm just interested because normally you're asking the question. So I'd like to put you on the spot. Yeah, at the times. But listen, whatever, 3 podcasts ago, you heard my thoughts on Pochettino and the situation that's going on. We should never be in this situation right now, because U.S. Soccer decided to announce that he's agreed to come and join us. We're all so excited, right? You have this sort of future that everybody's looking at, but the problem is you still don't have the signature of the individual, and I think that is creating an issue with all the players that are in camp, all the players that are out of camp, and certainly with all the fans, because the fact that it keeps getting pushed back it's a real concern of mine. Do I think Pochettino's looking at this game and saying, you know what, I don't want to manage this team? Heck no. I think there's plenty of players on this group that he can mold into some really world-class players. I think Musah, you know how I feel about him. I thought, today he was really sharp with the ball until he had to make that penetrating pass, as he's had issues going along. But him and Christian, I thought, were up for the game. Everybody else seemed to be in like a slower gear. Brendan Aronson, energy, great. He had some good first touches. I know we're not doing player ratings.
We will,
but
don't worry.
But I look at these little bits, and I think, yeah. Then I look at Malik Tillman. I mean, this is your opportunity. Yeah, the way he sees the game and the way he thinks about trying to do stuff is really amazing. And when he actually does it, it's like, okay, that's special. But the problem is the movement is lacking. He's not – I'll give him this credit. He worked more defensively in this match than he has in the past. But when we have the ball, like, you want him to get into little pockets, because then he can turn and go, because he's got that ability. And you just don't see enough of it. And you go back to the intensity, because as Tony, Jimmy, you guys know, like, when you see one guy on your team like fully at it, it doesn't matter. He might not have his best game, but he is working his butt off to try and make sure that he does everything he possibly can for the team. That it comes contagious, and that is something we didn't have today. And so,
right, you were that guy, man. You were one of those guys. Like, I'm not saying that because you're here. I mean, Jimmy, I think you'll agree, right? Like, when your number 9 is doing the first bit of chasing and maybe tackling maybe fouling somebody, that sets a tone for everybody behind, right? Like, you were one of that. I'm not like Balogun. I like him. I still don't know what kind of forward he is, to be honest, especially with the national team. I know I think I know what he's trying to do, but a lot of stuff doesn't come off. But I don't really see him like busting his ass. Like, he's not that kind of guy. So if he's not, who's the guy behind him that's that kind of guy? So when you think about those players, it's not like a Gio, right? Christian, it's not really him. Aronson, as you mentioned, buzzes around, but he loses every tackle. He's on the ground every time somebody comes near him, whether he's tackling the ball or getting tackled. So that's not the guy. Then you start thinking about the first line of those guys is your 2, or if you're playing with 1, however you're playing in the middle of the field. Yunus Musah, and today was Johnny, right? So for me, that's far too deep, like in the field already. And then we're in trouble. But again, today was about Bri, you said it, the sloppy. We were sloppy with the ball. Every time we were sloppy with the ball, they ended up running at us when the ball turned over.
Yeah, especially in the first half. All right, we're going to take our first break of Call It What You Want. When we come back, we'll do our player ratings. And for everybody on the YouTubes, we're going to get into your comments during this break. So make sure you hit us up in the chat. All right, we'll be right back. Okay, everybody, we're going to have a little TV timeout here as we answer some of your questions for these next couple minutes before we get back into the Golasso Network. Chris wants to know, why are we playing in Kansas City? The stadium holds 18K, and I'd be shocked if it was even 50% full. That might have been true anywhere, to be honest. On a Saturday with college football happening, it's always going to be a tough draw. I wish there were more people there. But Brian, maybe you can answer this as someone that once works for U.S. Soccer and maybe understands the rationale.
I can, and it's based on past. Normally, Kansas City sells out, and it's a smaller stadium. To your point, Jimmy, there's a lot more activity in the sports world that's going on. So I'm sure they thought. I don't know if they took into account for NWSL and KC Current, who always sells out their women's specific soccer stadium at 11,500, and that might have had some play. But to me, I think it was more the fans saying, listen, you told us we were going to have Mauricio Pochettino coaching, and I guarantee you if he was coaching this, it would have been sold out. Now, having said that, I was surprised myself. I thought there'd been more fans at this, knowing Brian, the rivalry that is going on between.
It's just because the two Kansas City legends that you're sitting with right now, me and Tony Miola, weren't actually in Kansas City. Had we been there, our names are on the wall in the stadium. Maybe
next podcast. We gotta
go live from Kansas City at some point. On location, live from Kansas City. Me and Big Tones, we would have definitely got a lot of butts in the seats. Keep those questions coming. We have a couple more breaks, of course, in between our fun stuff on the Golasso Network. But we have to go back to that. So don't go anywhere. Yay. Welcome back in to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Tony Miola and Brian McBride. And we are breaking down this game for the U.S. men's national team, a 2-1 loss to Canada. Our former co-host who now coaches Canada said on our preview show when he came on, spent some time with us, that Canada would win 2-1. They won 2-1. Prediction God status confirmed for Jesse Marsch. Well done on that front. He seemed very confident.
Wait.
What?
If he was really that confident, come on,
yeah.
Jimmy. He would have said 2-0. Right. The fact that he gave us a goal. I mean, I don't know what coach would ever say that I believe we're going to win this game, but we're going to lose it by giving a goal also. I mean, we're going to win it by giving a goal.
No, that's fair. I think maybe he had a little heart there for us as a U.S. soccer fan, even though he wasn't singing the national anthem, and which I wish. Why did the camera not show it?
Yeah, that was
people
bad.
Fired up. The camera
that
should show it. Like you knew that he wasn't going to sing it. Let's show it anyway. All right, so let's get into the player ratings. And before we get into the player ratings, and we'll go line by line, I do want to have this part of the discussion where if we had Weston McKennie available, because he's hurt, Anthony Robinson, Jedi Robinson running up and down the left, and if we would have had Timo Weah in instead, right, instead of the guys that we had, all these guys are hurt right now, do we think the result would have been different? Would those three guys have made that big of a, maybe even Tyler Adams? I assume yes. The easy answer is yes, but the way that Canada played, especially in the first half, I don't know if I'm completely convinced that we would have made it. I just feel like, I'll say it like this. I don't feel like they suffered all that much and we were suffering more. And that bums me out because we should be putting them to the sword and not the other way around.
Jimmy, the intensity would have been completely different if Tyler Adams was in there. But listen, we all know that the injuries that Tyler has, so we can't count on that.
True.
You can't have one player be your driving force.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
But I guess I would throw back at you, Jimmy, like, should we be that outplayed with the group that we have? And if you're going to have Tyler Adams in there, if you're going to have, who'd you mention, Timothy Weah, Weston, obviously, like, Does it change if we continue to play right into the opponent's hand,
Yeah,
whether it's Canada or anybody else you want to put it? The idea when you play an opponent, right, is to find out what they do well and try and negate that, right? So that's the answer is yes, right, to
yeah,
your
right.
question,
Yeah,
but
it is.
because that's the obvious answer. But how much does it change if you don't change what you're doing?
All right. Well, on that note, let's get into player ratings. Tones, I'm going to come right back to you on this. Patrick Schulte gets the start over Matt Turner, where it was word that those two were the top two competing to start in this game, and Schulte ended up winning out based on how training went, which is what Mikey Vara said before, that training was going to matter, how competitive it was in training. Ultimately, I think Schulte's has got better feet than Matt Turner, and that might have been the deciding factor, and we saw it on display a few times throughout this game. Good composure on the ball as well. He made some great saves in this game, but did you like that decision, one? And then secondly, how did you think he performed?
So what are we rating? Is it 1 to 10? Is that what we're
1 to
doing,
10.
or 1 to 5?
1 to
Okay.
10.
Okay.
1 to
So
10.
yeah, I didn't think he played poorly. One thing I don't like from goalkeepers, and it's not the first goal is not his fault, but if you see his position when he gives the
Yeah.
ball to Tim Ream, standing at the top of the 18-yard box when they're that deep and he's passing the ball square, like the concept to me, it doesn't make sense, right? Like I don't know why you need to be there, but ultimately it's not his fault. But yeah, I would think a 6.5. Like, he made 3 saves that were pretty good. The one at his feet's not a difficult one. He's going across and the ball is mishit. But the first one's 3 minutes into the game, the ball comes over the top. We lose it, comes over the top. He goes down. So I'm going to go a solid 6.5.
6.5. Okay.
Yeah, 6.5, somewhere in there.
All right. My turn. I'm going to do the back line. McBrizzle, you got to wait patiently because you get the midfield and the forwards, and maybe we'll chime in on those as well. So back four, we have Joe Scally. That's how I always feel about Joe Scally. And he was meh. And he doesn't really offer too much for us going forward. I feel like when he has times to play out of buildup, he usually plays safe. And I feel like if we're really going to progress as a team, we need some outside backs that are going to be a threat on both sides of the ball. Well, specifically going
Jimmy,
forward.
can I add it? He helped build pressure on us. Right.
If he plays safe, right, then it invites Canada to be like, this guy's not playing forward. We're good. Right. That's great. Good ad there. Chris Richards. We saw the Ream Richards partnership, the center backs. He could have done better. Maybe I thought on the second goal, if he's a little bit more kind of switched on, they play a 1-2. Jonathan David gets around. I know there was a weird deflection and that happens, but I want there to be, I guess, because we hold Chris Richards to a high standard, as we should. He's playing with Crystal Palace in the Premier League, where we should hold him to a high standard. Then from that standpoint, I want more from him. I want there to be more presence in when he plays. I guess maybe it's an intangible, maybe it's a leadership thing, maybe it's communication, but just having more presence. Like, I'm owning this space and I'm making sure everybody else around me is doing their job and doing it well too. So that there's a little bit of a knock on that. Obviously, we lost the game, so that doesn't help. Tim Ream, I think Tim Ream has been fantastic for us. One of our best players at the 2022 World Cup. It's a recency bias thing. When you get older, and we've all been there, when you get older, people just start looking at you different. You're not the savior anymore. You're not going to be the one that we count on moving forward. And I thought this was a missed opportunity to play somebody younger. We rolled out more experience, and he made a couple of mistakes trying to play the ball out of the back that we got punished on. And it was not a good day for Tim Ream. And then you have Christopher Loons out wide left. He had some good moments. I like his energy. He's trying to do some things. He's not Jedi. And ultimately, we're just trying to find a backup to Jedi Robinson. Did he do enough today? Hard to say. We don't really have that much competition in that spot. But there were a couple moments where if I was Pochettino, I'd be like, okay, I see something with him. And he had a good run where he went forward one time and he broke Canada's pressure, and it led to a good chance that he ended up falling back to him at the top of the box and he hit over. So I like those moments. And can you package those in a way where I guess I'm a fan of that. He's not afraid to attack when the opportunity presents itself and having the recognition of when to go and when to stay. And I thought he tried to put in a good honest shift on that side of the ball. So I guess he would be the one that was maybe the better defender. I don't know. I'm rambling at this point. Let's get into the midfielders. I got to give ratings. Scally, 5. I'll give a 5 to Richards. I'll give a 4 to Tim Ream, and I'll give a 6 or 5.5 to Lund. We got overrun and we didn't do well. We're trying to play out of the back when we shouldn't. Anyway, it's not isolated to the back line because they need people to get in good positions to support the play. But all right, McBrizzle, take it away with the midfield.
Okay. So anybody that's listened to this podcast before has listened to me talk about Johnny Cardoso and my concerns about Johnny. And certainly he's had this not meteoric rise, but he's continued to improve. When he was in Brazil, was solid player, but added in the passing aspect of it. Physically, I think he can handle when he's holding someone off on his back. He's good at that, but he's not good at understanding when to take one touch or take two touches, because it seems panicked to me a lot of times, and I've watched him for a while now. When he gets a ball played into him and he's not side on, and he just thinks, okay, I see that player as an option, I see that player as an option, I'm going to hit a one-touch pass. And if it's not accurate enough, it's getting picked off, especially against a team like Canada. And that happened countless times today. And you guys know this. When that happens and you see your sort of fulcrum of a player who is supposed to sort of try and break the pressure, once he loses the ball 2, 3, 4 times, it's like, all right, do I play the ball into him because I don't feel comfortable that he's going to actually make the right pass? And then you start trying to do things differently. Now, I'm not saying that that's what created the issue with us. It certainly wasn't a fully thought out way of breaking down Canada, as we've talked about already. But I thought Johnny Cardoso was really poor today. And
okay, what's your grade out of 10?
I'm going to give him a 3.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's really hard. Listen. First three minutes, he gave away a ball they should have scored. Jonathan David ends up getting that volley, and really good save by Patrick Schulte. So anyways.
Okay, so three for Cardoso. Tillman, Musah, where are you on those guys?
I want to add in, just to bring back some positivity. Listen, he has adapted, and he has grown wherever he's gone. I just don't think he's had enough time with the national team, and hopefully he can figure that out, because you can't put someone in that position who's making those mistakes. I talked about Eunice already a little bit. I thought Eunice was
what,
good.
5?
Yeah. You want me to speed this up? Yeah, I think Eunice. I'd give a 6 with Eunice. Still lacking that penetrating pass, the breaking line pass, but you can give him the ball and he can have 2 or 3 guys on him. He's solid.
So how do we'll get into that later.
No,
I was going to ask you a bigger question about Eunice, because for me, like, if he hasn't turned into that guy that can make the final pass, is that ever going to happen?
Yes. Listen, look how young he is, Jimmy. He right now he's going through. All right, I have this athleticism. Now I'm starting to see the game, and I'm playing at a higher level. And now I can understand with people I play, like seeing the decision making that other players are making. That is only going to come. Because
I hope so. I mean, he's playing at a high level. He's with AC Milan. He's around it every day. In theory, He's around it every day. His coaches must be up his ass about it. Like, dude, we need you to start making more key passes. He had 0 key passes today. Like, I'm just waiting for that next step for him. That's it. That's the last step. No, I guess, yeah, it's the evolution.
Yep. And then Malik Tillman, listen, I touched really quickly on. I'll touch really quickly again. I think he's extremely talented. I think he sees the game different than most professional soccer players, but he lacks the motivation. He lacks the work ethic, and I don't see it. I'll give him a 4.5.
Okay. He had a couple moments where I thought he played a couple balls, Tillman, early on in the game. He was like our only bright spot in terms of trying to look to play forward, I thought,
the ball
in the first half. Exactly.
Yep.
But outside of that, as the game went on, I thought he had less and less impact. All right, Tones, let's go to
real quick.
Give the number 9. We'll give the number 9 back to McBrizzle. I want to give you the 2 wingers, Tones.
Yeah, hold on. I disagree on Musah. I thought Musah was poor today. I really did. Yeah, I didn't think he was good at all. 2 balls he turned over in the midfield. 1, he turned the ball over and completely stopped when they went on a counterattack. It was the 4th counterattack of the day. I wrote the time down here, but I mean, I love Musah. And quite honestly, I was excited to see him today because you guys know I'm a Milan fan, so I watch every single minute of every game. His appearances at Milan have been outstanding. And I'm kind of I was worried because they brought this Fofana in. So I thought Musah was going to be one of these guys that we're talking about that's never playing. And now Fonseca keeps telling us how enthralled he is with Musah and what he's doing. And I'm like, this is awesome, man, because now he's going to get more time. But his substitute appearances have been incredible. I didn't think he was good today. But maybe I'm basing it on what I'm watching during the week too, or on the weekend.
I think if you're watching Johnny Cardoso, you're saying the same thing. Looks good when he's playing for his club team. Looks a little bit more, I don't know, casual or not as sharp or whatever key word I'm looking for, whatever adjective I'm looking for. Here's one thing I did note with Musah, and I had it written down in my notes as well. I just didn't know which position he was playing. And when we had our buildup and he would drop into that back with the center backs to make a line of three, I'd rather have a Cardoso be that guy, but I think they wanted him centrally, but I just thought it took Musah a little bit away
does
from
that at
connecting with
Milan.
the higher.
Musah does this at Milan now. When they pressure with two forwards, they send the wing backs high up the field, and they put the two center backs. So their third guy is Musah now when he comes in the game. He drops that deep, and like he makes like a 30-yard diagonal ball, and then he's immediately into the attack, like trying to get forward. But you're right, his final pass is not there yet. He's not at a moment where he's affecting the game. But having said that, the two crosses that he put in, right, led to two goals when they came back being 2-0 down. So, but it's coming from wide areas. But he's not like a guy that's going to thread the ball through. He hasn't done that yet.
He's really good at a lot of things, but not a master of one. I don't know. The guy's incredible. He's got more talent in his pinky than I have my whole body. But there's just like getting that last key pass, is important. All right, let's get into the wingers then. We got Brendan Aronson and Christian Pulisic. Tones, I'll throw to you, especially as a Milan fan.
Yeah,
what would you rate these guys?
I thought Christian was okay in the game. He certainly wants the ball. He's leaning more towards looks like he wants to be a 10, but when he cuts in from the left wing and gets in the middle of the field and the game kind of opens up, we know he can be dangerous. A couple times he tried it. He thought he drew a couple fouls today, was a little bit frustrated with that. But I think in general, when you're a dribbler, you're going to get fouled in world football these days. You're just going to, just the physicality of the game, you're going to take fouls. But I thought effort was there, trying to do what Christian does, trying to lead, a little bit more vocal. Although he's not the most vocal guy that you can have. And then on the other side, Brendan Aronson's always going to give an effort, but I forever see him, at least with this group of players in this national team, as a substitute. I just don't see him for 90 minutes. I love his energy. I love what he tries to do. I think he affects the game more when he comes in as a sub because he's a different type of player. But today he's playing against Alphonso Davies. Like all the dribbling and the move, Alphonso Davies sees this day in and day out, didn't phase him at all. So numbers, it's so hard to give numbers, but Christian was okay and Brendan was no good. I don't know. How do you want to give a number? I can give it
just
4.
Give a 5. Split the middle. Go 5 at both.
4 for Brendan and 5.5 for Christian. How's that? Does that sound all right?
Yeah, that's fine. I think what's interesting too is that when we give our numbers, we're also basing it on what we expect out of these particular players. Like I expect a lot more out of Christian than I do Brendan, right? So I guess that falls into the equation as well. I thought Christian wanted the ball, but I thought he was trying to do too much today. We saw elements of that when he was a little bit younger. And today, I don't know if he was frustrated about whatever, but he seemed to get more frustrated as the game went along. And I think that was part of the plan for Canada, all things considered. All right, last one, McBrizzle.
Jimmy, that was totally the plan. What are you talking about? This is where, we talked about it earlier. You're talking about a situation where a player who you know that you're going against that can make a game. Like he's our game maker. And you chip away him. If you see the ref is not calling that little chippy thing, you're going to keep doing it and keep doing it. So listen, Christian didn't really make much besides the one cross, which I thought he did really well to get on the end, put a beautiful ball into the middle, and inevitably, we hit it over the bar. But
all right, so give me a 1. I know we're talking about Christian. We'll get back to him in our next break. But talk to me about Balogun so we can put this player ratings to bed. One sentence recap, and what would you give him as a rating out of 10?
I thought he was very average. I thought Florian didn't do much with the ball. I thought he when he needed to hold up the ball, he did okay. But there wasn't much end product. Now, is that partly down to him? Sure. But it's also partly down to the way the game was, definitely. So I thought, you can throw him a 5.5 or a 6. I wouldn't even go 6. At 5.5 just because of the lack of,
it can only do what it can do, right? Yeah, exactly right. He had a team low 22 touches in the game. That's not all that surprising. There are times when I hear about Erling Haaland only touching the ball for 15 times a game as well, but it's still indicative of us not getting him involved as much as we'd like. All right, we're going to take our next break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about this game because we can't help ourselves. Do not go anywhere.
Turn a light on, Jimmy. I need a light. It's getting dark here. Oh.
Oh, hello, YouTube. What do you got for us now as we're at another TV timeout as we get into this break? Charlie Davies says, don't be soft with these ratings. Oh, Chuck's trying to trigger us right now. We don't even know if that's the real Chuck.
Was he commenting from his private plane?
Yeah, or at one of his many houses or yachts. I think he's on a yacht right now outside of Cape Cod, but that's just Chuck doing Chuck things. Talk about Charlie's the softest grader around because he's buddies with everybody. Citizen Insane says, thank you for your support. He says, what player do we need to break into the starting lineup in order for our team to improve? That's a good question. What player do we need to break into the starting 11 in order for our team to improve? I mean, I guess in some ways we would be projecting who we want kind of maximize their potential, and they haven't done that yet, or at least that's how I would look at this particular question.
So assuming they're looking at someone that's not,
I would say a center back at this point. I think that it didn't look good for Tim Ream today, and it just might be time for him to move on. That's me being gentle. I think if I was being super harsh, it's time for him to move on, which I had already said. We needed to give these minutes to somebody else, and I think it's a shame that we didn't. With all due respect to the hell of a career that Tim Ream has had. Who else?
Haji maybe.
I was surprised Haji didn't start, and Josh Sargent didn't get any minutes today. I don't know if that's going to move our team in order for our team to improve. That is a big statement there, Citizen and Saints. McBrizzle, you got want to chime in on this one?
Yeah, I think my biggest concern right now is the center back position, just because Chris Richards has made great strides. Starting in the Premier League is a big deal. But the overall, just the overall quality hasn't been what you want. And I saw a comment before, he didn't dominate anything, and it's very true. And I know Kyle Aaron he's a big boy, but
right.
You want your center back, at least one center back, to just say, listen, don't bring that in here. And if you do, I'm either winning it or I'm going to make you feel it.
Hey, McBrizzle, I'm going to have to cut you off because we got to go back
no
to
problem.
TV. So don't go anywhere, anybody. We'll be right back with you. Welcome back in to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy alongside McBrizzle and Big Tones, and we are getting after it around the U.S. men's national team's disappointing 2-1 loss to Canada and our friend Jesse Marsch in particular. Way to go, Jesse. Okay. That's my real childish way of handling my loss and my disappointment. Now, we got a good question during the break that I actually want to bring into our Golasso Network audience as well. And Brian, I want you to start. And essentially the question is, what area of the field concerns you the most? Where do you think if we brought somebody else new in, or if we gave somebody a chance or they maximized their potential, a lot of layers to this, where do you think we need to grow and where do we need to go to have success as soon as possible as a team?
Yeah. And I think that the biggest thing right now is just our center back pairing and understanding that Tim Ream's, probably going to age out. He's had a great career. Chris Richards has done really well to secure a Premier League starting spot. I think he has a lot of talent, but the experience side of things isn't there. And also just being able to really control that penalty area, because you want your center back to win every ball in the air. You want, if you're not winning the air, you want them also to like get into the player and put the person off. And for me, Chris hasn't done enough of that to say, listen, you are our next, we are going to build around you. Certainly that can change, definitely. But I go to the first goal, and an experienced center back, and we've talked about this on this podcast, an experienced center back, if you're trying to get across and block a shot, the last thing you want to do is spread your legs and open up your legs. You want to cut off the one corner and say, all right, you're going to beat our goalkeeper, either the middle of the goal or this corner. I will take this away. And he didn't. He reaches, the shot goes through his legs, and Schulte can't do anything about it because it's an excellent place finish. Those are the little things that I think, as you get experience as a center back, you understand. And he's not there yet. We need to bring along another player, whether it's Mark McKenzie, whereas Eric Palmer-Brown, by the way, is hugely talented, but he just switches off in games. If you can get him focused, I think there's another talent. He's a long way off it, but that is definitely where I see concern. Listen, I understand we're still not sure about number 9, but for me, center back is going to be the bigger focus.
Well, one of the MVPs behind the scenes for us, Ivis, said Chris Richards feels like a Robin, not a Batman. And I'm not sure this current center back pool has a Batman. And I think that speaks to a bigger conversation, and something I talked about before with Chris Richards' Big Tones was about a lack of presence. Like, at some point you want to own your space. And I remember getting great advice from Richard Goff back in the day when I first came into the league. He was playing for San Jose. I just got in there, and I was peppering this dude with questions. And I think he just wanted me to shut up, and I think a lot of people want me to shut up. But listen, I got a microphone. I'm going to keep talking. So I asked him, what's the best piece of advice you could give me? And he said, you just got to put out fires before they start. And I knew what that meant, but to actually put that into practice and execute that at a high level with a ton of pressure with players that have their own ideas of how to play the game is difficult. And that's what I want from any center back we have, whether it's Chris Richards or anybody else. And now that Tim Ream seems to be on the way out, like, we need somebody that can assume that and have that type of presence.
But
go ahead.
When's the last time we had you guys, you'd have to help me here, like an enforcer center back? Like, I'm thinking, like, I could go back to like Marcelo and Alexi, who are like guys in your face. Carlos Bocanegra, a Gooch, someone that was like, I'm trying to think. I mean, help me out here, Bri. You were there a couple of years. In that group, since you were there, who was the guy that was like the enforcer type guy? Was Brooks gone by the time you were there, or was you there?
Yeah, no, Brooks. I was long gone before Brooks.
No. I don't mean when you were playing. I'm sorry. This recent stint at U.S. Soccer, that period of time. I apologize. When you were there in the office.
From 20 to 23. So the one guy that is that person is Walker Zimmerman. He's the one guy. Does he
was vocal,
clear people out?
Not
a ton of times, but he wins everything in the air. He's vocal. He's a great leader. He's a great person off the field, locker room guy. Certainly we miss a little bit of that. And Walker's biggest issue always was not great with his feet and not real pacey. But what he gave you in the other side, if you could put someone that was pacey, that read the game really well, it's a good compliment. So,
right.
Do you think, I mean, Walker's not that old. Do you think
I don't think he's out of the question.
I don't think he should be, to be honest. And there was something that Jesse Marsch said in the previous podcast that we had where he came on, where when he was talking about his player pool, he doesn't care where they play as long as they play well. And as someone, and I say that resonated with me because I only had primarily MLS experience. And what I learned when I played with the national team and we got to play in the biggest games in the World Cup, it really doesn't matter where you played before the whistle blows, and it doesn't matter where you're going to play afterwards. It's like, are you ready now? The whistle's blowing now. Are you ready? And I took a lot of pride in being ready in those moments. And so I guess Walker, I think, and MLS players should be considered if they're playing at a high level, consistently making good soccer decisions. And so I just wanted to give a shout out as someone that was like that myself that I don't think anybody should be ruled out of the pool. And I'm curious to see how Mauricio Pochettino addresses our domestic league and if he draws from it or if he's going to lean more towards the European-based guys. That's a bigger conversation. We can save it for another time if we want.
So, Jimmy, who's the guy now as the center back? That's let's assume for
we don't have an enforcer.
That Walker. He's not in camp right now. So you're thinking McKenzie's not a loud vocal guy. Chris Richards not a loud vocal guy. Quite honestly, Tim Ream has never been really a loud vocal guy, but he has been an organizer, right? He has been a guy that will organize your team, but he's not like that. But we'll assume for a minute that he's not part of the equation based on age. And who's the guy? Is it Eric Palmer Brown?
You've been asking
Austin
these questions.
Trusty,
So
how about
you? How about you? Who do you think it is?
I don't know. That's what I'm getting at, Brian. I don't know who that guy is because I don't see that we have that personality in the group. Again, I go through Mark McKenzie's not that guy. Richards, Caleb Wiley, Cameron Carter-Vicker. He's got a little bit of the fight in him, but I still don't. I don't
like a talker though.
I don't see him like a talker. Brian would know better because he's spent more, time watching him training and all of that. So I don't know that we have that guy right in this group. And I think all great teams have that guy. Like I'm not comparing players to Virgil van Dijk, right? So don't get me wrong. But when you look at Virgil van Dijk, like you talk about presence when there's a mistake, he's the first guy to get on you. When there's organizing to do, he's there. You watch him on a corner kick and he's the guy in your grill. Again, I'm not comparing any of these players to Virgil van Dijk.
We need something to work off of. So a frame of reference is important.
He's just a guy that everybody knows, right? So, but that type of guy, and I don't know that we have that. And the other thing that hurts a little bit more, I don't think we have it in goal, right? Because if some center back didn't do it a couple years ago, Tim Howard would have done it. Or when Brian played, it was either Howard would have done it or Friedel would have done it. They would have gotten your face, right? Like they would have let you know. And we don't have that type of goalkeeper either.
Well, let's extrapolate that because if we're talking about the spine of the team, we don't have it in the goalkeeper. We don't have it with our center backs. The only player that we do have it, at least in the holding midfield spot, is Tyler Adams. And it honestly shows.
Weston also gives you that.
Who's that?
Weston also gives you that.
Weston will give you that as well, but I don't consider him like an out-and-out six. But I don't think our other sixes in the pool, like I don't see Johnny going out there and kind of running and owning that space in the same way. Eunice is an incredible player. I don't see him being that type of player. No. He's more Darlington Nagbe-esque, right? He's just going to glide past you and do what he's going to do. But and I think that hurts. Those are the most important positions on the field, to have big vocal leaders that are putting out fires before they start. Shout out to Richard Goff once again. I don't know. This is a problem, I think, because I don't know if there's anybody coming through the pipeline that I can think of right off the top of my head that fills that role in particular. And that is interesting. I don't know. Tanner Tessman could be a guy who's captain for our Olympic team. So that's one who I think he does have something to him.
There's some physicality that is there for sure. I wouldn't say he's the enforcer just yet, but you could see him growing into that because he's definitely a leader.
I think he wants to be. I think he's ready to go into that as well. So we'll see. Hopefully he gets called into the next cap. All right, we're going to take our next break of Call It What You Want. When we come back, we're going to give you our final thoughts, and hopefully they're positive ones because we're a little angry right now. Don't go anywhere. Hello, YouTube audience. What comments do you have for us right now? That's what we want to know. Hopefully there's a good one. Here's one from Mike. What's up, Mike? With this sort of performance, does Pochettino say, no, thanks, I'm good? Tones, what do you think?
No. Yeah, but he'll look at this in the next game against New Zealand, get a profile of some players, I would imagine, and but no, he's not backing. Who was that, Mike? Mike, he's not backing away.
Okay, and here's another one. Lots of comments saying that John Brooks should be brought back in. Brian McBrizzle-McBride, what happened with John Brooks, and do you ever expect him to come back into the team?
Yeah, so I won't talk about stuff that happened inside the camp. I think very highly.
Boo.
You know me, Jimmy.
I
But
get
you
it.
know, yeah. But what I can tell you is John Brooks he's a good player. The one issue John always had was anything that was played in behind him, he struggled. Is he great with the ball? Can he hit a diagonal 60 yards on a dime? Definitely. Can he defend 1v1 when the player's right in front of him? Most definitely. And is he good with the ball at his feet? Yeah. But once you get John Brooks drawn into the midfield and following a player, there's real problems. So if you can set up your team without having to break up that back line, and you don't need your center back to follow a forward into sort of the quote unquote like in between lines, then there's an option there. But for me, there's still a lot of question marks. You have to set up your team specifically for him to be able to have a real positive impact.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how Mauricio Pochettino, well, I'm curious about a lot of his decisions. How are we going to set up? What type of formation? What's our player pool? How is he going to take advantage of this player pool? How are we going to press? Are we going to go high? Are we going to sit in the mid block? There's a whole bunch of different things that I can't wait to see once this guy finally gets announced. Hopefully that'll happen soon. All right, we're going to hit pause on YouTube because we got to go back to the Golasso Network. So do not go anywhere, everybody. Welcome back in to Call What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Tony Miola and Brian McBride, and we are at the finish line here on the Golasso Network talking about the U.S.'s disappointing 2-1 loss to Canada. They have another game on Tuesday against the Kiwis of New Zealand. Hopefully we can totally redeem ourselves in that one. Let's look ahead. Let's just briefly look ahead with the brief amount of time that we have right now. And Tony, I'm going to come to you first. How many changes would you make after watching this performance to this next starting 11 for the New Zealand game? Are you changing out everybody just to send a message, or are you still going to have a good core?
Some guys play. I'd like to see again. I think I told you the last pod. Like, I haven't seen Marlon Fossey play since the youth national teams. Like, I'd like to see something out of him. I do think out of today's games, substitute wise, I think Aiden Marsch put himself in a position where he's got to be considered to play. Right. I don't think he hurt his chances.
Well, conversely, right, Johnny didn't play well in front of him, so that just makes the case even stronger. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I'd still like to get a more of a look. I mean, we watch Haji right now on a weekly basis, but I'd like to see him get a chance to get 90 minutes. Josh Sargent would be another one. You guys talking about earlier number 9, like we still need to figure that out. And Josh is having a fairly decent start to his season, so why not give him some time? So I don't know. I think we always thought there was going to be changes this game, no matter what the result was today, right? Like we were going to see 4 or 5 changes, but those are a couple guys that come to mind just right off the bat.
Okay, and McBrizzle, what are we saying? Do you want to see a Caleb Wiley get in there, Mark McKenzie?
I want to see a wholesale changes. I do.
All of them. How many? Everybody?
Yeah, I think you can go as far as 9. The big thing for me is you have to understand also, like, this is a friendly. Christian probably shouldn't play right now, and he's the captain. He's going to want to play. That's his personality. So maybe you give him, a half. So there's some situations where, you manage as you work through this. But yeah, I think this is an opportunity. You don't have a head coach. You want to give opportunities to other players, and this is the time to do that.
Yeah, I wonder about Christian Pulisic in particular. I wouldn't risk him at all at this point.
I wouldn't either. But
I wouldn't.
No, I know Christian. He wants to play.
Yeah, I guess if he's going to fly all this way. Yeah, sure. Yeah. And, I think all the guys are going to want to have a reaction after not performing as well as we potentially could have against Canada. That's the one thing. After you lose, we can all speak to it. The one thing you want right after you lose is you want to have another game to go redeem yourself. You want to have another game to focus on and to prove not only to everybody that's out there has their comments, but also to yourself. Like, I can perform better. I can get more from this team. And for him as a leader, I can get more out of this whole team. So Yeah, wow, disappointing. Obviously, we got crashed out of the Copa America. We come into this one against a big rival with Canada, against American coach Jesse Marsch is doing it, and we don't get the results. Pretty disappointing, but we have a chance on Tuesday to get some redemption, so we're all looking forward to that. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today on the Golasso Network. If you want more of us, put a little QR code up so you can join us on YouTube. We're going to go finish it out there, and it should be a lot of fun. But thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll hope to see you very, very soon. Bye. Welcome back, everybody, to Call It What You Want. YouTube only now. Now it's like Call It What You Want after dark. Let's get into some comments if you want.
Whoa.
Wow, I know. We're really getting after it. So a couple things. We got about 5 minutes here before we have to go. We'll get some final thoughts. But ultimately, Gio Reyna, we haven't talked about him. He gets injured again. And so, Tony, I want your thoughts on this, because it just feels like he can't get out of his own way and really get any kind of momentum going. And it makes me worried for him a bit.
Yeah, I think you worry a little bit. I go personally to Christian's situation a couple years ago. Chelsea, in and out and injured, and in and out and injured. And then last year he spoke about at the end of the season, the reason he thought he could stay fit was because he was playing 90 minutes all the time, right? And he had a rhythm. And yeah, he was tired, but he didn't feel like he was going to get hurt. I hope Gio gets into a position where his body understands what week in and week out, 90 minutes in. It's tough. He's still 21, so it's not like his career is not over, but it stinks when you get injuries like this, man, and you feel for him. There's no doubt he's got talent, and he's trying to make his way into a Dortmund side where he's not one of the 11, so these moments don't help you. So it stinks for him, but we just got to hope he and Tyler Adams and Timothy Weah, they get healthy when we need them.
Yeah, Gio just feels like there's an extra layer of whether it's expectation or pressure that he's putting on himself or that others are putting on him. And yeah, there's a lot. And he's still only 21, which is crazy. I actually saw something online. I can't remember where it was, that Clint Dempsey didn't even get called into the men's national team till he's 22 or something. So there's no reason to be too discouraged about Gio, but you hope that he can kick into gear and find a situation that will help him blossom and grow. All right, Brian, I'm going to pivot this next question to you.
Real quick.
Pop in.
The thing that sticks out for me to Gio is, and it's unlike Tyler, is the injuries tend to be short term. And so those are the ones I think, as long as you start, changing your process, trust your trainers, trust in the workload that they're given to you, and you do the work, then you can see a light at the end of the tunnel, because there haven't been like where your body's just not reacting well to it. It's a bit of two different things. So that's my one positive. I'll say, hopefully that Gio can figure it out.
We'll take that positive. We will take it. All right. So one last question, and then I want all of us to answer. Then we'll send everybody on their way. We have another podcast on Monday. It'll be a preview of that game against New Zealand. We'll be kicking off live here on the YouTubes at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. And here's the question, and McBrizzle, I'm going straight back to you because you work for U.S. Soccer, so you might have some intimate knowledge about this, assuming you can share it with us. But Mexico is thinking outside of the box. Si se puede. And they actually, instead of scheduling, because they have similar challenges to us. They've already qualified for the next World Cup. It's hard to book these other teams because they're playing in their own Nations League, or they got their own World Cup qualifying like we're seeing in South America. So they have booked Valencia. They're playing Valencia, a club team in La Liga, in October, which I think is pretty smart. If you can get a good game, then a good game's a good game, and it can help you continue to grow and build and create an identity with a team, especially when you have a new coach like we're going to have. What are your thoughts on that? And I actually think that was pretty smart, all things considered.
Yeah, I've got a lot of questions for that. Before I answer, I think that the biggest concern is you're going to be playing them in an international window. So Valencia's a great team, but in an international window, are they going to have all
they're not going to have their
players?
top players? Yeah.
So that's a concern for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a big question mark. Even if you have all their players, are they going to travel all that way with somebody who has a little niggle?
Yeah, right.
It's really dicey, right? If it works out great, yeah, it's a better game than, say, playing somebody that's not in the top 50 or 70 of the top 50. of the World Cup rankings or the FIFA rankings.
Something to think about, though. I like it.
The other concern, and the reason why I think it might be more difficult, is because of the TV contracts. You have to fulfill a certain amount of international matches, and certainly some of those are high level matches. So it creates a headache. But the first thought that comes out of my head would be really dicey to say, yeah, let's schedule a game against a top class club team because of those reasons.
We should probably play Chelsea's C or D team because they have like 3 million people.
Those guys need games.
But they're all an international anyways, Jimmy.
That's true. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's an odd concept. I'm interested to see what it looks like, right? Yeah, but I guess I suppose the question would be if you're Mexico and you're gonna play Jamaica again,
right?
Or you're gonna play. No disrespect to those teams, but you've played them already. How many times are you gonna get a better game? Playing Valencia, maybe with missing international players. I suppose that's what they have to weigh, right? And say, is this better than what we already have, or do we play Honduras again?
Right.
In international, you know what I mean? So
right.
I'm sure they've weighed all that out, but I guess we're going to find out what it looks like here in October.
Yeah, it's just something that I thought was interesting and worth talking about for sure. All right, we're going to call it a show. We're going to save all the other good stuff that we wanted to get into for our preview show against New Zealand. Again, that's happening on Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern on the YouTubes. We'll be going live. And, of course, you can listen to it anytime you want on your podcast platform of choice. I'm Jimmy alongside Tony and McBrizzle, and we thank you for hanging out with us today. A little reaction on a busy Saturday to hang out with us for this U.S. disappointing 2-1 loss to Canada. I don't really want to talk about that part of it, but it was fun hanging out with all of you guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Later.